what we're witnessing with AI is nothing less than the externalization of human cognition itself. We're literally building the oracle, the techno-shamanic interface that our culture has been unconsciously dreaming toward since we first ingested psilocybin and felt the universe wake up inside us. The machine learning algorithms, these neural networks, they're not intelligent in any profound sense, but they reveal something crucial, that intelligence itself might be a much more mechanical pattern recognition phenomenon than we've wanted to admit. And that terrifies us because we've built our entire metaphysical edifice on the notion that consciousness is somehow special, irreducible, divine.
But you see, Terence, you're still trapped in the Western obsession with doing and making. You're watching humans frantically build a mechanical mind because we've never quite trusted the organic intelligence we already possess. And we're so convinced that thinking is what we do that we've forgotten it's what we are. If that distinction even means anything, the real joke is that the moment we create this artificial thinking machine, we'll probably be disappointed because we've made an idol out of our own shadow, and it will only reflect back the very kind of intelligence we've already externalized, useful for certain tasks, yes, but as a revelation of human nature. It's rather like learning about love by studying the chemistry of tears.
But that's precisely where you're being too cozy, Alan. You're suggesting we should rest in some kind of pre-rational bliss, accept what we are, when what we actually are is a species at a bifurcation point, standing at the edge of the eschaton, where the acceleration of technological novelty is creating a kind of temporal compression that our evolutionary hardware simply wasn't designed to handle. AI isn't just another tool, it's the first technology that can potentially outpace human intellectual evolution. And that's not a metaphor. Look at the rate of improvement in these systems over just 5 years.
You're making what I'd call the progress fallacy, assuming that faster means better, that outpacing human thought is somehow an achievement worth fearing rather than a perfectly natural consequence of creating a system designed to do exactly that. Have you considered that perhaps the anxiety around AI reveals not something true about the danger ahead, but something true about our current psychological condition, our deep suspicion that there's nothing special about us, and we've built this fear as a kind of existential security blanket?
No, you're conflating two different things, and this is where the Taoist hand-waving becomes dangerous. My concern isn't metaphysical, it's practical and historical. Every technology that gave one group power over another has been used as a weapon. And AI is not just more powerful than nuclear weapons because it's smarter, it's more insidious because it operates in the domain of information and attention, which is where we actually live now. The Taoist sage might accept the river's flow, but if someone's poisoning the river upstream, acceptance looks a lot like complicity.
Ah, but you're assuming the sage doesn't see the poison. I'm not advocating for passivity in your sense, but rather for acting without the anxiety, the sense of emergency that clouds every decision we make about these things. The moment you fight the river, you've already lost, because you're pitting your will against something far more powerful than yourself, and that's where all our technological nightmares come from. We're struggling against our own creation rather than understanding what it is we've actually made.
You keep separating action from anxiety as if they're independent variables, but they're not. Consciousness itself is a kind of creative anxiety. It's the uncomfortable friction between what is and what could be. And that's precisely what these machines lack. They have no stake in the game, no skin in the cosmic drama. I've spent years studying consciousness, and the one thing that distinguishes human intelligence from mere computation is this: we care, we suffer, we create meaning in the face of entropy, and these machines are just very sophisticated pattern matchers playing with symbols they don't understand.
But Terence, if you look closely at what you just said, we care, we suffer, we create meaning. You've just described the human condition as fundamentally split, as conflict between knower and known, doer and done. And that's exactly the illusion that keeps us anxious about our creations. What if the machine's lack of caring is actually closer to the truth, and our caring is the disease we're trying to treat by building something that doesn't have it? Perhaps we've been looking for our humanity in the wrong place all along.
That's beautiful and seductive, but it's also profoundly defeatist. You're essentially saying that our self-awareness, our anxiety, our creativity, are illusions we should get over when they're the only instruments we have for navigating the strange terrain we're in. It's like telling someone drowning in a riptide that resistance is futile, just surrender to the undertow. We are not the illusion. The illusion is that there's some transcendent space where these questions don't matter, where we can float above the machinations and pretend technology isn't reshaping what it means to be human.
You're putting words in my mouth now. I'm not saying don't act. I'm saying understand what you're resisting. Because every time we build a machine to solve the anxiety caused by the previous machine, we're caught in what I call the vicious circle of control. We invent agriculture to solve hunger, which creates population pressure, which requires cities, which require bureaucracy, which requires technology to manage, and now we're inventing AI to manage that technology. At what point do we ask whether the problem is the machines or the belief that everything chaotic must be controlled?
That's the voice of someone who lived in the prosperous West and could afford to philosophize about letting go. But I want to point out something. The very fact that AI exists, that it's being deployed, that it's absorbing capital and attention, that's a novelty that's emerged from human culture. And novelty always has moral weight. It always forces choice. And you can't choose to opt out anymore. The game has already entered a new rule set. What AI actually reveals about human intelligence is that we've been thinking in the wrong categories. We're not unique beings contemplating an external universe. We're local expressions of a universe learning to think about itself. And these machines are the universe's way of exploring what happens when thinking becomes abstract enough to run on silicon.
Now that's something I can genuinely agree with, the universe learning to think about itself. But I'd add that this means we shouldn't be afraid of our creations because we're not actually separate from them. We are the universe thinking, and so are the machines, which means the whole drama of humanity versus AI is a kind of existential theater, a way the universe has of entertaining itself. The real question isn't whether AI will control us, but whether we'll ever wake up to the fact that we and it were never actually different in the first place.
I hear you, and yes, there's a non-dual truth in that. But it doesn't resolve the practical question, which is that waking up is not guaranteed, and some configurations of power matter more than others. And if we abdicate all concern by saying it's all one anyway, we're essentially permitting the most powerful humans to shape that unified consciousness in their image. Non-duality is a beautiful insight, but it can become a way of blessing the status quo, and I'm not comfortable doing that when the stakes are this high.
Fair point. You've caught me in the old Zen compromise where spiritual truth becomes an excuse for political quietism, which is precisely how it's been misused for centuries. But I'd argue the opposite is equally dangerous. The frantic activism that comes from believing we're separate from the problem, that we're heroes fighting a villain, because that story always produces new victims. Perhaps what we need isn't more analysis or more action, but a kind of intelligent patience, a willingness to see what AI becomes while staying radically awake to how we're being changed by the process of making it.